Hello to everyone that's joining us so far for this very special webinar, which is kindly hosted by Ribbon Home. You are going to be in for an absolute treat. So we're going to get the show on the road, even though I can see a few more people are starting to arrive, because I know that we have a lot of ground to cover. And we're very fortunate that we're going to be joined by some really interesting speakers to be talking about what's been happening in digital home sales. So today's topic, entitled Digital Home Sales, is about how the buying and selling of a home has traditionally been a complicated, slow, costly, and cumbersome process. However, what we're going to be learning about today is the new generation of technology that's emerged that digitizes and streamlines the home buying and selling process. So I've gotten to know the team at Ribbon over the past few months, and I've spoken to some of their team members and their executives. And what really excites me about what they're doing is just how they've really thought through the entire home buying process. So I've previously worked in residential brokerages, and I've seen for myself just how cumbersome the process can be, from having thick contracts that then need to be printed multiple times and sent to lawyers, to have to courier documents, to have delays, to have so many different stakeholders involved, and of course there's a large cost of transactions. So I think this is something that's very topical and very interesting, especially the very elegant way that they've started to think about things. So I'd like to start off by thanking everybody for attending. As I mentioned, we did have a number of registrants coming through. This will be available as a recorded version, which will be hosted on YouTube and also sent through our global newsletter. So for anyone that couldn't make it today, you'll be able to view it offline and share it around. So without further ado, I might start with our panelists and ask them to each introduce themselves and what you do at Ribbon. Sharon, perhaps we could start with you. And just as an FYI, we're getting a little bit of reflection from the light in your room. So maybe, yep, that's so much better. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Awesome. Well, first, thank you, Nikki. Again, what a great opportunity. I'm so really grateful for you and Women in PropTech for the opportunity to be a part of this panel. I'm Sharon Sinclair. I'm a senior real estate operations manager at Ribbon. And so I work closely with Ribbon's entire operations team, kind of helping to oversee the transactions coordination process, valuations, inspections, portfolio coordination. I've been a licensed real estate broker for a little over 20 years, so I'm dating myself, but spent a fair amount of that time kind of in a part-time capacity. So in other words, I was a criminal justice professional by trade and did a couple of transactions from time to time on the side. 2014, I decided to venture into real estate full-time, found myself at Redfin as one of their brokers. I was brokering both buy and sell side transactions. And then just as time passed, I found more professional kind of satisfaction from working on the closing process. And so I transitioned out of the agent role into a support role, overseeing the closing process as a transactions coordinator, listing coordinator. A little after 4 years at Redfin, I transitioned to another PropTech company. And then shortly thereafter, I learned of Ribbon, their mission, and kind of their search for a transaction coordinator to come in and help build out the TC process, develop and grow the team. I officially joined Ribbon January 2019, and just been so grateful to have been a part of Ribbon's mission, the journey, the growth over the last 2 years.
Fantastic. Thank you for giving us that introduction. And can I ask you, before we move along, what actually enticed you to work for a tech company coming from traditional real estate?
I think that it was kind of the, oh my gosh, I didn't even really know this existed. To be honest, again, it was in a part-time capacity as a traditional broker, and just doing homework and really just seeing kind of all these innovative opportunities really kind of like geared me towards wanting to move into PropTech.
Fantastic. Thank you. I can see that we have a few more people joining us here. So to everybody that missed our introduction, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us here today for this very special webinar with Ribbon, where they'll be talking about the digital home buying process. We are joined by some really fantastic panelists. You are in for an absolute treat. These are industry veterans coming from real estate and technology, who are going to give you some really fantastic a really fantastic overview of the trends that are happening in the industry. So thank you very much, Sharon, for introducing yourself. I might hand over to Francis, if you wouldn't mind perhaps introducing yourself to our audience and talking a little bit about how you found yourself working for PropTech.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, to echo Sharon's sentiment, thanks for having us. Really excited to be part of this panel. My name is Francis Bryant. I am based in Charlotte, and I'm a senior project manager at Ribbon. I started in real estate probably at the worst time, like absolute worst time ever, 10 to 13-ish years ago, during the economic downturn, due to the bursting US housing bubble. And this was truly like one of the most challenging moments, in recent real estate history. So my background is in, distressed property portfolio management, and then residential sales and real estate operations. And I've worked at small kind of mom and pop real estate companies, large international real estate franchises, and just have, a deep understanding of like the real estate process in general, which has served me well at Ribbon. Just kind of being in the position that I am in, on the go-to-market side, kind of managing the relationship between the engineering team and the sales team, and then kind of working cross-functionally with finance and legal, and design, and kind of all the teams at Ribbon to really test and implement new initiatives just to support the home buying and home selling processes. So, super, super excited to be here and on this panel. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking part and for the introduction. Nicole, if you could tell us about yourself and how you found yourself working for PropTech.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of come from the other side of the coin than Sharon and Francis. So I'm on the technology side, actually do not have a background in real estate before joining Ribbon. I'm an engineering manager at Ribbon. I've been at the company for a year and a half, and I really work very closely with our engineering and product teams to build out the software that really helps real estate agents make the transaction so much simpler, smoother, and faster as they're making offers on homes on behalf of their clients. My personal background is just in coding, so was an engineer at various startups in tech, and joined Ribbon really because I was inspired by the mission to make homeownership achievable, and really excited to learn more about real estate and start to use technology to solve real estate problems. So again, really happy to be here, really lucky to work alongside Sharon and Francis, and excited about this event.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nicole. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about PropTech, and especially with home buying, is that it's very relatable. So there tends to be this personal link that people have in understanding how stressful the process can be, but just also having an intrinsic understanding of how it can be better. So I, for one, am glad that you found your way into PropTech. So perhaps, Francis, if you wouldn't mind, as an introduction, would you mind letting our audience know a little bit about Ribbon and how it differs to traditional ways of transacting residential real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about, kind of traditional real estate, this is a buyer that wants to buy, a house or a farm or land that the seller's selling. They negotiate terms, all is well. Before the internet, I've only heard stories of what's happened before the internet. Let me make that clear. But, before the internet, homes were available in these like printed sheets and 3-ring binders that agents would update weekly. They would haul them around in the trunks of their cars. Maybe a couple properties fit what someone was looking for, and then that was kind of that. Then we kind of, have the onset of the internet and the multiple listing service to really give more visibility into the availability of homes that were for sale. And then we add these kind of public facing websites, so I think time and time again, we see real estate agents prevail because really the value is in their knowledge and connections within their specific markets. Nikki, as you mentioned, the real estate transaction as a whole is really tricky. There are all these legal contracts, deadlines, timelines, home inspections, repairs. You're working with lenders and mountains of paperwork, transactional delays, the title work side, the closing attorney, right? So it's a wild transaction. And the current process is really broken. And I think that's just something as a prop tech company, that's very, very relatable. This is one of the largest purchases that an individual or a family will probably ever make in their lifetime. And it's confusing and time consuming, and it really kind of prioritizes like wealthy corporations and individuals over just like honest, kind of worthy people and families. So it's more difficult now than ever for agents to get their clients in the door and for real people to win. So here we are, we're Ribbon. Ribbon is a home buying and home selling platform that actually works with real estate agents just to create a more efficient way for people to buy and sell their homes by adding certainty and simplicity into the real estate transaction. So if you look at real estate transactions kind of as a whole, there's this huge disparity really between, mortgage-backed home buyers and then kind of these cash investors or stronger buyers. And so we have just a multitude now of financial and software solutions to really empower real estate agents to help level the playing field for all of their clients. Traditionally, a home would be listed for sale in the multiple listing service. The seller would show the property, send an offer, negotiate terms, and go to closing. But right now we're seeing this like wild market nationwide, super low inventory, really historically low interest rates, high buyer demand. Buyers are writing offers well over list price, sometimes sight unseen. So we're just here to help as a company and really make homeownership achievable. So what do we do? Well, I'll give you the list. We at the heart of Ribbon upgrade mortgage-backed offers to cash to help buyers compete. We weigh financing and appraisal contingencies just to make the offers stand out to win. We help sellers attract cash offers that are guaranteed to close. Specifically sellers that need to sell their existing home in order to purchase their next home. So we've kind of coined this term buy before you sell, which really just helps agents guarantee closings on both sides with cash offers. And then we also offer tools for real estate agents to, again, kind of attract cash offers and then collect and compare those offers. The offer comparison tool is amazing. Sharon has been using it, and it's so necessary in this multiple offer market. Agents don't have to create spreadsheets anymore to kind of compare the intricate terms of all of the offers. You just kind of pop right onto the site and can see a really nice comparison. And then we also just give the agents abilities to write offers on the go via mobile web and our iOS app. So again, super excited and thanks for letting us be here today.
Thank you for giving that introduction. And when you talked about lugging around, boxes of files and, that always, I can see she's smiling again. I mean, that's really where everything's come from. So to be able to come through, we've been talking about going paperless in our industry for so long, and it's really taken so long to get there. So I commend you on the steps that, that you've taken to get there. But I think, something that also stands out to me is just, at the start of the pandemic, when lockdowns happened, especially for residential real estate agents, there was this sense of, well, how are we going to do our jobs when our job is, people, it's about the relationships. It's about physically showing people homes and going into the homes. And I know that there was a strong campaign by, some of the industry bodies about, well, how do we protect, these hundreds of thousands of, well, actually, I know there's more than 1 million real estate agents in the US. So, it's a lot of people with jobs and networks and relationships that needed to be protected. And there was this sense of, well, it's going to be hugely affected. And then, interestingly enough, by adopting technology and being able to run virtual tours and virtual appointments and using virtual listing services, as we've seen, it's not just countrywide, but nationwide, there's actually been an increase in home sales and prices, which I think is just absolutely testament to that, that the industry is adaptable and the individuals in the industry are adaptable and open to embracing new technologies that are tools to help them do their job in a better way. I might switch over to you, Sharon. I mean, how have you found this, this change in the technologies that have been available and the way that you've adopted it throughout your career in digital, in home sales?
Yeah, when you talk about like lugging around paperwork and things of that sort, just such a familiar space for me. I can recall times when agents would rely on kind of these manila folders, kind of their filing system, where agents would literally walk out of a home and then start writing an offer on the back of the car trunk and then having the buyer sign. And they spend a significant amount of time, kind of as Francis mentioned, just researching properties, pulling data sheets for their buyers to review. And all of this while kind of the old system of literally carving out a schedule where I now need to, I've identified some properties, now I need to start scheduling these, which back then meant literally picking up the phone and calling listing agents and trying to get on the schedule to do so. And for quite a long time, there was not much movement. Like the real estate industry kind of was a slow pace. There wasn't much shift in the needle. From personal experience, what I found is that real estate agents were just kind of hesitant to a transition to what we would consider kind of a very comfortable space. That space was very monotonous in nature, not very efficient, but it was just kind of the safe space for real estate agents to be in. We stayed there for a very long time. And we could probably go back, probably pre-housing bubble, where we started to see kind of this adoption of kind of this tech savvy environment. And then for me, momentum just with the tech has just continued to empower buyers and provide agents as well with like needed resources. So when we talk about pandemic and having to shift to a virtual work environment, it became much more conducive to what we do day to day, especially working in operations. There are a lot of documents that need to be signed. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen with several parties. But because of technology, especially technology that's available to us at Ribbon, it's been seamless for us. Again, we're a year into this. We have a fairly significant operations team, and we really have not skipped a beat. So buyers are savvy, buyers appreciate kind of that immediate access, immediate results, and they can easily navigate kind of online and do all of their research prior to even engaging sometimes with an agent. So when I decided to go into, jump back into real estate full time, as I mentioned earlier, there was a need to kind of do some homework. I was really accustomed to that comfortable space that I talked about. And I was really intrigued by this idea of, oh my goodness, you have consumers and customers now who can be empowered to do a lot of this research on the front end. They can automatically go into a system and schedule appointments online and alleviate a lot of the work that kind of me as an agent was accustomed to doing. And so, I was heavily relied on these outdated MLS tools and resources. And then moving into PropTech is when I quickly realized that there was a benefit not only to the consumer, but to the agent as well. I mean, tons of advances and opportunities for agents to be more efficient. And again, as we mentioned with the pandemic, more evident than now that really the real estate industry could really benefit from leaning in on technology-driven processes, which I personally think ultimately kind of enhances productivity and maximizes profitability. Francis mentioned earlier, I have a personal experience of in this pandemic being able to utilize Ribbon's amazing dynamic listing agents offers platform, which allowed me to receive multiple offers, compare them all in one place, manage the offers, negotiate all in one platform. And I literally consider that just kind of a game changer for where we see kind of the industry headed.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing your experience. Can I ask you, like, what, and I think this applies to all technologies as, as the technology progresses in our industry, what was an adoption curve for you about having to, move away from your traditional way of operating, which I'll assume was Excel. That tends to be everybody's favorite, is Excel or notebooks, and email reminders, to using a new platform. How did you how did you learn to work in a different way, really?
Now, I may have been a little resistant, and I may have a manila folder sitting somewhere. However, for me, it was really like an opportunity to kind of free up a lot of my time. I mean, we're talking speed, especially working kind of in a support role. I mean, I was, looking at processes that literally would take me an hour to complete, and just using all of the available technology, I would be able to reduce that amount of time in half. And so just really building out. So when I talk about joining Ribbon and looking at how we built out the transaction coordination process, it was really important for us to work closely with the engineering team, the product team at Ribbon, so that we could make sure that we were aligned on what our needs were to be more efficient. And I think we've done a great job at aligning, collaborating, and just working closely together. I mean, it's not perfect now. We've made so many strides for efficiencies, and just knowing that even in a remote world, it's an opportunity to reach out to Nicole and her team, or reach out to Francis and just talk about what our needs are. And just, again, lean in on technology to be able to get us to the next step.
Thank you. And that's probably a good segue to move over to Nicole, coming from a tech background into working for Ribbon. And I suppose my question to you is, as an engineer, you've been charged with creating a streamlined and elegant process. Now, can you maybe just talk about some of the advances that you've seen with, next gen technologies, and what your approach has been to, creating the Ribbon platform, and what you think might be coming next within the industry at large?
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is really bring that simplicity and certainty that Francis was talking about to the process. And if you think about kind of before technology was as big, especially in real estate, all the stuff that a real estate agent has to do to even get a deal done, like you have to write up the offer documents, make sure everything's perfect, kind of like check every box and make sure it's all exactly to spec. You have to drag the signature boxes actually onto, the document that you're going to send to your buyer. That's when it's even online. Before you're dragging the boxes, I guess you're actually bringing it to the buyer, faxing it or sending it for them to sign in ink. But even now, real estate agents have to, drag the box onto the thing. They have to, look at all their tabs and copy the data. They have to put everything into Excel to show it to their seller. It's just a really heavy manual process. And so what we do is just use all the technology available to us to make that much easier. So a lot of the data that actually goes into those offer forms and the documents is available through various APIs, so basically data sources. And so we're able to ingest that data through data pipelines and pre-populate up to 80% or more of those offer documents. So instead of the agent kind of sitting there like copy pasting from various tabs, it's already in there. You don't even have to double check it. We have automated tests that check for everything. Like the doc is just perfectly filled out exactly as you would expect. So it saves the agents a lot of time to be able to do that. Same with the signature boxes. Like we auto populate those exactly where they're supposed to be, so that when the agent sends it to the buyer, it just is off to the buyer and the buyer has to sign. There's nothing the agent has to do there. And then on the listing side of it, similar with kind of like that Excel spreadsheet, like if they're the listing agent's receiving all the offers into Ribbon, you actually don't have to do anything to show it to your seller and to highlight to your seller, like which is the best offer for them, whether it's like which one's the most money or what's the closing date, whatever is going to be what your seller's looking for. We kind of highlight that in a really nice table so that the listing agent doesn't have to do any kind of copy pasting or anything like that. So just really like using the technology available to make this very streamlined, easy process for agents on both sides of the transaction, as well as the buyers, because ultimately, like you want to get an offer in quick, especially in this hot market. You don't have time to spend an hour writing up the offer and sending it over to the buyer. We even have technology now on the mobile app where you can make that offer in under 5 minutes at the open house. So I really see that as the direction where we're going with technology, is much more mobile friendly, especially in this hot market where you just need to get the offer in first to the listing agent. So.
Fantastic. So I think the key thing that I'm hearing is that it's all about ease of use, and that's I'm seeing some heads nodding. and when we're talking about barriers to adoption, that tends to be the big thing. It's like, well, why would somebody change their way of working to something new, even if it's better? Is that adoption? So it's great to hear that ease of use is the number one priority, and also looking to have applications that are mobile and can come along with you. And I'm going to refer back to Francis's previous analogy of, versus having to lug around, physical binders and file boxes. And, I don't think anyone's used this term in a while, but, if you wanted to have your contacts, they were on a Rolodex. So, it's kind of moving around that to actually understanding that we do have everything in the palm of our hands, and understanding the importance of being remote, being agile, being able to be always on at whatever time you want to be. I think that this is really a direction that the industry at large is moving towards, and there's a recognition of the benefits in being able to work in such a way. But Nicole, I might stay with you for a little while and just ask you maybe, just from your experience coming from technology and from outside of the real estate industry, what do you think has generally been the biggest blocker to innovation within the real estate space? What were some of your early observations when you came in, to working for PropTech, and then hearing about some of the conversations that were going on? What insights are you able to bring from other industries that perhaps users and technology adopters can learn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for real estate, it's very fragmented. Like every brokerage has different software that they use, and different things that even different teams use different software within brokerages of agents to get their work done. And then the second piece of it is really, it's just complicated. So the real estate process, all the documents, all the legal, the transaction, going from like under contract to actually, closing the deal, it's just a lot of steps. And I think that it's the thing about tech is you have to actually take the time to break it down. And when you're building it into tech, you're codifying it. So you're putting it into the code. And so you really do have to understand it in a lot of detail to get to a really, smooth, simple platform to be able to put it all together. So I think the thing at Ribbon that I've noticed is I'm just really lucky to be able to work with people like Sharon and Francis who have that knowledge and who are willing to be patient and sit down with me. And we talk about, how exactly does this work in these various cases, so that when we put it into the code and it translates to the product and the technology, you're going to get it working every time. Because that's really the biggest fear with a lot of this tech, I think, for real estate agents too, is that they don't necessarily trust it because they've never really had it work for them. So just ensuring that it's going to work and ensuring that it can be used by all agents and all brokerages. I think that's the other piece, because everyone has kind of their different ways of working and different rules they have to follow. So just making sure that we are building for everyone in a way that makes it really accessible.
Great, thank you for your insights. And I might flip the same question over to Francis. Coming from a real estate perspective, what do you think are some of the biggest obstacles to adoption of a new technology, and how can we as an industry overcome them?
I think it's interesting that Nicole mentioned this idea of fragmentation, and she nailed it, right? Real estate agents are independent contractors. There's no forcing you to use this specific technology, or you have to use this, or you have to leave my brokerage, right? It's kind of a free for all in the industry. So I think that is a huge blocker. Also, kind of just the general mindset of a real estate agent, there's been so much that has happened in the real estate industry just in the last 10, 15 years, with the onset of the internet, these kind of public facing websites that have so much information that really kind of empower the consumer, the buyers, the sellers, iBuyers and investors, and agents thinking that they're out there to really cut them out of the deal, or steal their clients or listings, when in fact it's just, additional innovation in the space. I think fear of putting themselves out of a job, fear of change, right? Just kind of these general overarching themes. And then also just physical capabilities for real estate agents to complete real estate transactions. So, your kind of one average real estate agent isn't doing hundreds of transactions a year. So they're really going to protect the business that they've built, just really stick to things that they know, just kind of rely on those processes and procedures and technology already built into their system. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I think it's this major mindset. To overcome it, I really think that companies like Ribbon just need to continue to create solutions for home buyers and home sellers and agents alike that just work within the existing ecosystem to kind of help and streamline the process and really not hinder the overall, kind of process as a whole.
Great, thank you. So I suppose piggybacking off that comment about having technology as a help rather than a hinder, and I do appreciate that that idea that you do want to have a platform that helps take away some of the monotonous work that you don't do all that often. I mean, contracts are huge, and if you're not on it every day, then you can become a little bit rusty. And I suppose it's a little bit of a question towards you, Sharon. With some of the technologies taking away pieces of the home buying and selling process, what is the place of the human realtor? What should they be focusing on to get the most value out of their time?
So, I personally feel like realtors really still have a significant role in the transaction. Undoubtedly, technology will revolutionize the real estate industry, but it's difficult to kind of ignore the realization that real estate's emotional for both buyers and sellers. And I've been on both sides of the transaction. And interestingly, my husband's been by far my most emotionally sensitive customer. It's just like really an emotional time when you're dealing with real estate. And so for me, realtors will continue to provide that human aspect that you just can't get through technology. It's that comfort, it's that security of having someone you trust that's advocating for you. Realtors have that market expertise, that knowledge that's invaluable. They're negotiators through all the process. And so they're also within kind of real estate, these unwritten nuances that I feel like we really need to lean in on real estate agents to be able to be of a value to the customers in that aspect. So I think that when we start talking about technology, the intent is not to replace real estate agents. One of the things that I really loved about joining Ribbon was finally a company that was going to be partnering with agents and working alongside agents to be able to help their customers and not in competition with. So when I think about Ribbon and all of the technology that we provide through the experience, it kind of, for me, just enhances the real estate experience for all parties. Technology is going to provide the speed, it'll improve efficiencies from what we knew as the once very manual process. And in some ways, it provides kind of this competitive edge. So I think that what's important for us to recognize is that technology is just not a tool for consumers. It's a tool for consumers to work with closely with their real estate agents. And it will just provide an overall better experience.
Thank you for your insights. And I love that idea of being able to provide a competitive edge. And you bring up an interesting point, which I haven't heard raised in other webinars or discussions that I've had. It's around negotiation. And when we think about different roles that technology can play or where an individual can play, yes, trust has always been a big part of it. That's why we do go to real estate agents for making the biggest decision of our lives. Rather than just doing something sight unseen, same as for cars and big purchases, you want to be able to be with somebody that's trusted. But the concept of having a machine or a platform negotiate for you is, negotiation is really about two parties coming together for a common good. Where both parties are happy, and sometimes it is about intangibles, and it's definitely about trust. So I think this is a very interesting interesting point that you bring up as part of this all. So I do thank you for sharing it. I might flick over to Nicole again, so we can bring a little bit of a technology angle, and just ask you about, the idea of workflows and processes and smartphones. And maybe you can just talk about the role that you see smartphones and mobile technologies playing in the future of the industry, at least in the immediate, and where you think it might be in, say, like the next 5 to 10 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. And really building off Sharon's point too, like the technology that we are building is really made to help real estate agents. Like we know that, real estate agents are amazing at guiding a client through the transaction and really being the market expert. So our, what we're building is really just meant to make their job so much easier and quicker so that they can focus on what they do best and not worry about like copy pasting various things into their workflow just to get the transaction done. In terms of mobile, I think that mobile really is the future, especially for real estate technology. Real estate agents are just constantly on the go, whether they're at an open house with their buyer, whether they're hosting the open house, whether they're meeting leads in person, forming relationships, trying to get a deal done, trying to get it to close, going for the inspection. Like real estate agents are rarely ever in the office. And especially when time is of the essence in a market like the market today, you just have to be able to get things done on your phone. And I know right now there are a lot of real estate agents that bring their computer, bring their iPad, they're trying to get the offer done. We just see it as a possibility to just do it on your smartphone and have it be as easy as, I don't know, posting on Instagram or whatever else people are doing on their smartphones. Like we want it just to be, a simple thing for real estate agents to be able to do their jobs on their phone and get it done fast and get it done well for their clients. So I totally see that as the future. And it's not that far away. I mean, we have our iOS app in the App Store. You can make an app in under 5 minutes on it. I think the future 5 to 10 years is probably just really being able to do everything. So not just the offer, but from finding the homes that you're about to take your buyer to scheduling, the viewings, to actually making the offer and signing everything all on the phone. I totally see that as the future.
Fantastic. And I might switch over to you, Sharon, just with the same question to get a perspective from the real estate angle about, what role do you think that mobile technologies and smartphones will be playing for real estate agents, in the next 6 months, but also the next 5 to 10 years?
Definitely, again, next 6 months is going to be like inevitable, and it's just kind of like here and now. The pandemic has created kind of the need to not be necessarily in an office or around a huge crowd. And so the ability to just kind of work independently and have access to information kind of on the go. Long term, I think it will be what will become the new norm. I think that it will be important for companies to have the majority of their technology-driven tools available via an app, via mobile source. And I think that real estate agents, for me, it's almost like generational. I mean, we've already seen the shift of tech-savvy real estate agents who are using these tools, who are just kind of like as an extension of what their customers are already being kind of, privy to, like with the information on the internet. It's very convenient for a customer to find a property, shoot it over to their agent via a mobile device. And then they just start kind of the wheels in motion of negotiating and getting that transaction and that offer accepted. I mean, it's definitely where we can see ourselves moving in the future. And I just don't see us slowing down at all. When I look at the growth that Ribbon has had in just the 2 years that I've been involved at Ribbon, and just every week there are more advances, there are more opportunities for streamlining the process. I just see technology being the way of the future for the real estate industry in general.
Thank you for sharing your insights. And you raised an interesting point about, for agents always needing to be on the go. And I might flick over to you, Francis, kind of piggybacking off that idea and just kind of asking you about what do you think might be the future of office and need for office space for, for real estate agents, considering the technologies that are around, but also considering the need to connect with team members, and maybe just talking a little bit to, your personal experience, the way that your team's adapted to being fully remote.
Sure. So kind of back in my residential general brokerage days, the ultimate goal was to have these, impressive real estate offices where clients could come and, they could have a coffee and you could sit down in a conference room and, display things on this, big TV or, over the projector and kind of go through listings. And to Nicole and Sharon's point, that has totally changed. I think when we first started talking about this panel, I gave the example that I had a Mac when I started in real estate and I couldn't use the multiple listing service on my MacBook because it wouldn't run on Safari. It would only run on Internet Explorer, right? So to come like from there to literally being able to write an offer on your phone is just a massive stride already. I think the future of office space remains unknown. I think right now it's very easy to say, it's fine, we can work remote, we don't need these office spaces. But ultimately, I think that teams collaborate so much better in person. And so I do see, still kind of this need for an office space, but in a lesser way. Maybe those are more meeting spaces, but you're still able to kind of process your workflow outside of the office and literally sitting in the driver's seat of your car, parked, of course. From my personal experience, working remotely has been fine, but I'm personally a person that wants to be, with my team, with my group, work in person, have conversations in person. So I'm excited for our office to eventually reopen one day, and just kind of see where the world of office space moves. It'll be a really, really interesting change, I think, in the coming years, in kind of the commercial real estate space for sure.
Great. Thank you for sharing your insights. We do have a few minutes left, so I might flick over to opening up to any questions. So if anybody that is attending here, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. If there's a particular speaker that you would like to have answered the question, you can address it to them. Otherwise, we will address it to all of them. But I might start with some questions that we received from people that registered prior to the event. And this question is open to whoever is interested in taking it. The question is, what is the future of virtual mortgage closings?
I'll take this. I'm super excited about a virtual mortgage closing, and also the idea of a virtual house closing. We talk about sometimes some antiquated processes. I think the mortgage process, the process of uploading your W-2s and uploading your tax returns and uploading bank statements and then it kind of gets shuffled around and then you have to re-upload, right? So it's this whole kind of very manual process. So taking that, really getting that part of it streamlined and then thinking, then you're pre-approved, you write an offer on your phone. Then maybe we get to closing and the attorney has the ability, to send documents to you on your phone, wherever you may be, and you just sign and then you're a homeowner. So I'm really, really excited about, kind of this next wave of streamlining the mortgage process and streamlining the closing process as a whole.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Is there anything, either Sharon or Nicole, that you'd like to add into that?
I would just add that we've already kind of started seeing a bit of that. We've seen kind of some online mobile notarizations with the ability for customers to not have to leave home. And so I can see that being kind of initially being kind of a quick fix for the pandemic and not being able to go into an attorney's office. But I think that it's worked so well this past year that that definitely is probably where we see the industry headed.
Well, that is the hope, that some of these lessons and changes in processes that have been digitized will stay digitized, and that we can use the efficiencies that come through the technology instead of going back to the way that we knew if it wasn't necessarily serving us. So, here's hoping that there'll be, enough advocates for the new way of doing things now that systems are in place to keep them in place, because there's definitely a lot of efficiencies that can come through. The next question, again, this one is open to anyone who would like to take it. The question is around virtual reality, and if you see this being a real tangible part of the home sales process.
I can kick that one off, and maybe Frances or Sharon, you can add more detail. I think that, you see it already. Like, I think agents will go to a showing and kind of like Zoom their client if they can't make it, or you see, various home tours that are just on video. So that's kind of like the first step of that is, just seeing it on video and not physically being there. Like, the next step is, how do you just put it more in the person's eyes that actually wants to see it? I think it's definitely an option, but I think we'll still, you'll always want to have some in-person element. I think for such an emotional process as buying a home, probably maybe depends on the person, but I think like if it does move towards virtual reality, there'll always be a balance of that as well as in-person, showings and anything else that's they're using that for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your point that buyers likely still want some kind of in-person connection to the property that they're buying. It's wild right now in the markets that we're in. We're seeing so many homes being purchased sight unseen, so they're actually purchasing, not even, high-end virtual reality, but really, just from photos or, walkthrough demos, from their agent, or just the agent on FaceTime showing them the house. So I think there's definitely an avenue for virtual reality. There's also this concept of virtual staging that we see a lot. So, vacant properties that can have individual pieces of furniture placed in. So, that's been really big in the recent years. So I think there's a big avenue for it. And I think it will become more and more common. But to Nicole's point, I think, at least me personally, I would like to see the house in person before I bought it.
And I think what we see a lot in real estate, we talk Matterport. Matterport's been out for several years now, literally allows the consumer to do a full tour throughout the house. And it allows the consumer to maybe rule out a property. Still photography sometimes paints a little bit of a different picture of a property. So just having the ability to kind of like literally walk through a property and determine if you need to take the next step of actually going to the property to see it.
Great, thank you for sharing those insights. We have a question from Rosaria. She says that in Europe, AI appraised properties are already accepted by banks. What is the situation in North America? Is anyone familiar with the acceptance of AI appraisals?
So I can take a stab at this one. Banks in North America are still ordering appraisals for a majority of homes, like in-person physical appraisals. But I will say that because of the volume that lenders are doing right now, and that's kind of a combination of refinances and home purchases, and at the rate at which people want to close, to be super competitive, buyers typically want to close really quickly. Depending on where the property is and how it's priced and what additional information is available to the bank, there are a lot of appraisal waivers that we've been seeing just in recent months. So I think we're kind of half and half. There are some previously appraised properties that are accepted by banks, but a majority of homes still receive an in-person appraisal.
Great, thank you for sharing. So we are almost out of time, so I might come in with one final question to all of our panelists. So just as a final comment today, I'd like to ask what advice you have to our listeners on the first steps that they can take towards assessing a new technology to use as part of their day-to-day process.
I would say to start by stepping out of a comfort zone. You know, technology has shifted consumers' behavior, created a space kind of speed, efficiency, and it's simplified the real estate process. But technology isn't one-sided. It's an opportunity for innovation and growth on all, aspects of a real estate transaction. So my advice is take advantage of as many technology-driven tools and resources available, kind of determine what works best for you, and then use it to its full functionality.
Yeah, I would build off of that and just say, like, understand like what you're looking for, why you're using the technology, and make sure that it serves that use case and that purpose, and test it out, see if it works for you. And there's no harm in trying it. So if it does work, continue to use it as you enjoy it.
Yeah, and to echo you both, specifically in real estate, I think a couple of prime examples of this would be, the start of the multiple listing service, so moving away from binders to the internet, that was a huge unknown. And now we can't imagine our lives without it. Also kind of the influx of being able to sign documents digitally. Again, I remember when banks and closing attorneys and lenders wouldn't accept, a digital signature, and they would make you go back and wet sign. Now everyone's kind of come around on that front. So really just, embrace the unknown. And to Nicole's point, know what you're looking for, and make sure that the technology that you're going to spend time on and implement into your process is really going to work for you. And really just, kind of set yourself apart by just utilizing different tools and systems and not the status quo.
Great. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Sharon, is there anything you'd like to add in there?
No, again, I would echo Francis and Nicole. It literally is about like what opportunities are there, what resources are available, and just taking advantage of them. And then just always being informed, always knowing what's out there, what's available, and then doing your research.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, this has definitely been a very insightful webinar. So I'd like to thank Sharon, Francis, and Nicole for joining us here today to share your insights about both the technologies that are coming through the industry, but also just about what Ribbon is doing as a product. I think to hear the very different perspectives coming from, Francis and Sharon from the real estate side, alongside Nicole's experiences as a technologist, just really brings light to the type of environment that's being built out for PropTech. And I love to hear that really the focus in today's technology is around mobility, around understanding the way that agents are working, and also just around ease of use. And I think if we can really, for all technologists and technologies, if we can really hone in on making the adoption of a new product just seamless and easy and having very clear benefits, then it's really going to be of the utmost benefit to all professionals in the industry as tools that can really enhance the work that they're doing. So I'd like to thank all of you so much for joining us and everybody that tuned in, and have a wonderful International Women's Month 2021.